Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be making any payments right now. She needs as much cash flow as possible to afford the attorney's fees and afford to get through this divorce, afford a down payment on some place to live if they're moving out of a separate place. I want a much more of a financial picture of the student loan.
She's not making comments like he's abusive. She's not making comments like he's,
all we've heard is financial.
It's just financial, so that can be fixed.
And in 7 years, they're completely debt-free. But they're going to have to get together on this. They're going to have to combine their finances, realize that they're in this together. This is probably a savable marriage, but they have a lot that they need to
forgive first, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they're not on the same page as money, I mean, first off, money is the number one reason why people get divorced. But it's also the number one reason why I send people to Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey.
It sounds like to me she's just giving up.
Oh, she clearly, you can tell that.
It doesn't sound like she's even wants to try.
Right.
Yeah.
If either one of you is not willing to do whatever it takes in order to make the marriage work, it will not work.
Right.
Definitionally, it's impossible.
Well, I'm preparing for a separation, and I'm not quite sure what to do with my debt. Specifically my student loan debt.
So in Texas, your student loan debt is actually yours. You take it with you. She's in Ohio, so the law is going to be different, but that's what the rule is here.
Okay. A separation from your husband or your job?
Marriage. I'm sorry about. Yes, from my husband.
Okay. And
so Texas also doesn't have what's called legal separation. You're either getting a divorce and you're doing that process or you're not.
Pairing for a separation. How long have you all been married?
Great first question.
About 22 years.
Oh, my.
So at 22 years, if she doesn't have the financial means to pay her minimum reasonable needs, then she would qualify for spousal maintenance, by the way, for 7 years.
My goodness. It must be bad.
Yeah.
So you would be surprised how many of these that I hear.
Would she get that in Texas like that? 7 years?
In Texas. So the time frame is if you've been married for at least 10 years, then you can get up to 5 years of spousal maintenance. And the maximum amount is $5,000 or 20% of the paying spouse's gross income. And the paying spouse has to actually pay the taxes on that.
Right.
It used to be the other way around until a few years ago. And at 20 years, they can qualify for 7 years. And then at 30 years, they can qualify for as long as needed, which could be perhaps lifetime. Or if there's a disability or some compelling reason why they would also need it.
It's just that we are just not on the same page anymore.
I see these a lot.
And with other things, but with money as well. And it's just...
if they're not on the same page as money, I mean, first off, money is the number one reason why people get divorced. But it's also the number one reason why I send people to Financial Peace University by Dave Ramsey. I have sent hundreds of people to him because if you go to Financial Peace University, you need to go with your spouse together. And then y'all have this common structure for how you're going to deal with your money. And it takes you through these processes where you talk about it and you agree about certain things. And it helps you do that in a very healthy way. I recommend it for all human beings on the planet. It's very, very good.
It's just something I just don't want to go on with.
If she could solve that problem, such as by going to Financial Peace University, she might not have to get this divorce.
It sounds like to me she's just giving up.
Oh, she clearly, you can tell that in her voice.
It doesn't sound like she's even wants to try.
Right.
That's kind of sad after 22 years.
Yeah.
Seeing a marriage counselor?
Great question. Have you seen a marriage counselor? And Financial Peace University to me is the marriage counselor version of financial marriage counseling.
Right.
Financial Peace University, go.
That's something he's not willing to do.
Have you gone?
Then the marriage won't work.
Yeah.
If either one of you is not willing to do whatever it takes in order to make the marriage work, it will not work.
Right.
Definitionally, it's impossible.
No.
Okay. Please do that for you, even if he won't go.
Yes, I completely agree. Go to counseling on your own, even if your spouse won't go.
Okay.
I think it will give you good.
But the other thing is you should invite your spouse to go to marriage counseling. Invite them over and over. And you can say, I'm going to go on alone and talk to a counselor about it. And I am inviting you to go. I want you to go. I want us to work on the marriage.
Well, and if financial issues are a problem, like, oh, we can't afford it. I mean, there are like church programs that don't cost but nothing.
And if you go to marriage counseling and y'all don't like the counselor, go to a different one. If you've gone to at least 20 of them, then finally just pick one. But go to at least 20 of them. If you don't like them, keep going. If both of you don't like the counselor, then it's not the right counselor. Keep trying.
Well, you know, honestly, marriage counseling is great, but you also need to know how to handle the steps in your marriage. Mm-hmm. And so, like, we do a re-engage program. We've talked about it before, and it's a 16-week course. But in there, you get a book, and you each are working in this workbook together, and it is teaching you how to work on you.
Yep.
The first thing you have to do is work on you,
yep.
and your spouse has to work on them.
Yep.
You can't work together if neither one of you are okay in here.
I completely agree with that.
So,
emotional information. 22 years is a long time, and you need to have somebody walk with you who's not in the fog if you go through this.
Exactly.
And or give you some, maybe give you some information to give him a little bit of a wake-up call as well. But back to your original question, I have a friend of mine that teaches divorce recovery after a divorce.
So recovery after a divorce is important, and you really need to work on that. I think her question, though, is how to prepare, but we'll see where he's going with this.
And I remember many years ago hearing her say, divorce turns a marriage into a business transaction.
That's very true. Mm-hmm. And if there's kids involved, which at 22 years, if they had kids early, they may have children that are over 18. So in Texas, if the child is graduated from high school and over 18, then they're an adult, and they're not part of the divorce. But financially, it is a business transaction. Mm-hmm. But if there's younger kids, it's also a very different animal or element, because you have to figure out how you're going to co-parent with each other.
Right.
And so it comes real quickly. The emotions are carved off and set over to one side, and the actual technical, legal, financial details are on the other side.
I completely agree with that. And the more you can separate your need to be right, your need to feel special, your need to be appreciated, the arguing. What we see a lot of times is people never get past the fact that you're done arguing. Right. You're arguing about, a lot of times, is whether or not you should get a divorce. And they can't get past that because they're like stuck in that decision. Mm-hmm. Once the decision's been made that, yes, you need to get a divorce, none of that stuff matters. Right. Those are all just reasons why you should get a divorce. Now, what do we need to do in order to get you through the divorce process in the healthiest way possible? That is the healthy approach.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes a very transactional kind of thing at that point. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
And that's true.
So here's a couple of things to look at. Your student loans are your student loans. They're going to go with you.
So that is exactly how it happens in Texas. I don't know about every other state, but it's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would think that would be kind of a
Although there are exceptions where we get those paid, because if the student loans were used to, I don't know, pay off bills here and do other things, there is some
like if they took out more money to live off of because they got married while the person was in school.
It depends on how you use the money and what you use the money for.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
So we do ask some questions about that.
Unless, you may or may not get alimony, child support, or something else, but your student loans are going to go with you, and you're going to have to pay them. So what is your personal income?
Good question. We always ask that question of both sides. And what is their income?
It's $50,000.
Okay. All right. And so what you
it's $50,000.
She's going to be fine. She can support herself. She'll make it on that.
Start doing is, if this is a direction that, after seeing a counselor and doing everything you can to save a 22-year investment, and with all the help you can get, you start preparing for living on your own for $50,000 a year.
Exactly. And we even have a client now who has an order, but the other side is slow paying. And the best advice that we could ever give to her is, if you get that money, it's a bonus, but don't count on that money.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to have your livelihood and your rent payment relying on them, what happens if they don't pay? and then it's going to be thousands of dollars for us to then force them to pay, and then you're going to get money at the end of the day, maybe, hopefully. It depends on if we can even collect on that judgment. So what do? You make sure that you can pay for everything that you need on your own, be self-sufficient, and then any money that comes in is extra and bonus.
And you look at your student loans. How much student loan debt have you got?
Oh, you're going to kill me.
I'm sorry?
$160,000.
Oh, my Lord.
Did she say $160,000?
I thought she said $150,000, but
She has 3 years worth of her gross income in a loan. Even if that loan's at 3%,
When did she finish
that's
school?
$10,000. Now, if she's making $50,000 a year, now she only makes 35, or I guess 40, because
Once taxes go
once
out.
the taxes come out, 35. That is scary, and she needs to be negotiating in this. Now, I'm highly concerned about what is the property division, because do they have a house? Do they have investment accounts? Do they have other assets? What can they sell? What can they do to pay this off? Now, I'm really curious about this.
Okay. Well, I would let them know that this is going on hardship deferral until you get past whatever else is going on here. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be making any payments right now. She needs as much cash flow as possible to afford the attorney's fees and afford to get through this divorce, afford a down payment on some place to live if they're moving out of a separate place. I want a much more of a financial picture of this. But yes, I would not. I would defer every type of payment that you possibly can. And if she can't afford to make credit card payments, I wouldn't have her paying those rather than taking care of the necessities.
Yeah.
The attorney's fees are what you use your emergency fund for. That is an emergency. It qualifies.
I bet she doesn't even have an emergency fund.
I
bet you they don't have any
I'm
savings.
worried. We'll see.
Now, do you all own a home?
Yes.
What's it worth?
It's 11
$200,000.
hours.
What's owed on it?
$170,000.
Oh God! So they own a $200,000 house and they owe $170,000 after cost of sale. Let's say if you get lucky and sell it for the $200,000, then realtor fees are going to take $20,000 out of that, and they're going to have $10,000 left over. But what if they have to give a $10,000 discount just to get it sold? Now they have nothing. They might even be upside down on it. So there's no money there.
Okay, so no equity there to amount to anything. All right. Is your car paid for?
Yes.
Is his car paid for?
No.
Well, good. It depends on where the cars are or how much is owed. Her car being paid for, thank God.
Right.
His car, you leave him with his car and you leave him with the debt. But then is the debt in your name also? Because if he doesn't make the payment, he ruins your credit. Not that this lady should care, because this lady should never borrow money ever again.
Right.
Except to pay her lawyer to make sure she gets this divorce done.
Okay. Is your name on that loan?
That's the next question.
No.
Good.
Well, that's good.
Excellent. All right.
Okay. Are there any credit cards that have both of your names on them?
Please, God, tell me no, but I bet you 50 cents that there are.
There is one, but I refuse to let him use it.
There's
She
one, but
refused to let him use it. First off, right now, if it's in both of their names, he can use it. There's no her letting him. She's, there's
Unless she's holding it hostage. I mean,
or doesn't have the number, but he can pull his own credit report, get the number, call that credit, and say, "Oh, that's a Discover card. Call Discover. This is me. I want a copy of my card." He can spend it. It's not that
Yeah.
difficult.
I'm sorry? Oh, you refuse to let him use it. Oh, better than that.
Yeah.
Close that account today.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, in Texas, or at least in a lot of different areas, they have these things called standing orders that prohibit you from doing that. You have the actual ability to do it, but the court is likely to penalize
but
you.
she can do it
for
prior
canceling
to
it.
filing. though.
Prior to filing, she
Yeah.
can. And that is something. This is about I'm preparing for a divorce, and that is probably the same advice that I would give her is if you can do that. But before even doing that, and what I don't necessarily like about Dave giving that advice, that's what you would want to try and do. But there may be a whole string of consequences, and that may start a stack of dominoes. You ever seen how the little domino then knocks over a bigger one, then knocks over a bigger, and then knocks over this one that will kill you? I worry about that because it totally would depend on the lawyer she's got and the strategies and different protections, because you're in a chess game, and any one little thing, you're telling one move of chess to make. Well, you make that first move, you got to know the next 50 possible moves. And each of those 50 moves have 50 moves after them and 50 moves after them. So there's this giant tree of possibilities that you have to know. And you can't say, yeah, well, if you were to go this way in the perfect ideal way, then that's a great move. But that one could go this way and you might die. You know, it can be a horrible thing. You've got to be very careful.
Right.
Just completely close the credit card. If he has the number, he can use it. If he's one of the users on the card.
Exactly what I said.
Period.
Yeah.
And if things go sideways emotionally inside your house, I have run into situations in 30 years of doing this where somebody takes a Mexico trip and puts it on the card.
Yep, we see that a lot. And if there's no other assets, that's a problem. If there's plenty of other money over here and they're spending, they're spending a lot of debt and like, wow, those are really stupid purchases. But, and they max out $150,000 worth of credit cards, but they have $2 million over here. Well, we can equate that out, and they can, hey, that's your part, and we should have had this, and you're going to get this part. I mean, it all equates out. But in her situation, that scares me a lot.
And you don't want to pay for a $5,000 cruise for somebody else, and it'll end up on this card. So close the...
And the deal is that if he refuses to pay that card, she has to pay that card because she's joint and severally liable for that, meaning the credit card company can go after either one. Even if the divorce decree says he has to pay it, the credit card company still goes after both of them unless they do a thing called a novation, and credit card companies never do a novation. Sometimes real estate loans will do a novation, and they'll say, well, even when you applied for the loan, like this person doesn't have any, and you make a lot of money, so we'll just go and we'll let them off the loan because we're going after you because you have so much other stuff.
Right.
I've seen that once in my career of that. Actually happening. Most of the time, it's a full refinance.
The account today. Just completely shut it down. It's a zero balance?
Yes.
Good. Close it. Okay. Does your checking account have both names on?
Here's the problem I worry about that, though. If she doesn't have enough money to pay attorney's fees, rather than closing that account down,
Just take his
use
name
that
off of it.
account to pay her attorney's fees. Because if she doesn't have money for an attorney, she's dead in the water. And so if she's got 5 or 10 or 15 grand available on that card, I'd rather her give that to the attorney, even if it's going to charge her interest for 6 or 12 months or 18 months, however long that this divorce is going to
Hey,
happen.
a lot of the credit card companies, you can call them up and get 0% interest for 12 months.
Yeah, but not to do anything else
Well,
except to pay her attorney's fees.
I think maybe it would be hard for her to get a loan or credit.
Yeah, with what she's making and
Yeah.
having that much in student
Because I would
loans
say
and-
close it, get another credit card that's just in her name.
I would say use that credit card. Forget about the interest rate because this is an emergency. You have to be able to pay your attorney. Otherwise, you get nothing, and this can go real bad. I mean, he could go in and default her and have it to where she has to pay her student loans and for his car that he gets to keep, and he gets to keep the house, and she has to pay for something. She has to pay him child support even though she's the primary caretaker of the child. All kinds of bad stuff can happen. It's really bad. She has to get an attorney in this. She can't do it alone. And she's got the resource and money available in that credit card at least. There may be more, though. Let's see.
On it.
No.
Okay, so your money is separated by and large. Is there any other debt or debt instrument that's open that has both of your names on it?
If their money is separated, then as part of this divorce, you need to know what he has.
Right.
Because he may have money that comes to her through this process.
No.
Okay, all right. Except your mortgage probably has both your names on it. Okay. So here's what happens. You can't afford to keep this house. You can't stay there.
No.
So the house needs to either be refinanced to get your name off of the mortgage or sold.
A refinance wouldn't be bad because then she could say, well, this house is worth 200 or maybe you say 210 and we owe 70, therefore my equity is, let's say, $20,000 out of that, $15,000 to $20,000. So you buy me out for $20,000, you refinance and get my name off of it, and now she's got $20,000 in her pocket rather than selling the house.
Yeah.
Because selling the house, she gets nothing probably.
Yeah.
But doing a deal where he gets to keep the house. Now, here's the other thing. If he refinances, he might have to do it at an 8% interest rate versus they may be at a 2.5%, 3% interest rate.
Right.
The difference on a repayment on $200,000 or $170,000 versus at 3% versus 8% is $500,000 less. It's a major advantage. If she did a deal where he pays her $100,000 to stay in that house, that's a worth it deal. And what does it do? It locks up her credit, kind of. But there are mortgages and things. She could still buy another house because he's required to pay for that other house. So it basically works as an investment property for her. And instead of only getting no money out of the house if the house is sold, I can do a deal to put together where she might get $100,000 out of that house. And we could do it and something that's very enforceable, such as spousal maintenance, and in Texas, to where she actually gets money paid per month. There's a lot of possibilities here that a good attorney will be able to get her
he makes.
a huge advantage. Oh, yeah. I definitely want to know. I'm surprised that Dave hasn't asked.
Well, maybe he's getting to it.
We'll see.
You cannot stay on the mortgage and give him the house. That would be dumb.
You can. It used to be dumb. But because of interest rate arbitrage, again, a $170,000 loan, you're going to pay off versus an 8% loan. That 8% loan for $170,000 is going to be about $400,000 total payment over the life of the loan more. So rather than him pay $400,000, you could get a deal to where if you don't make him refinance, that he'll pay you a whole bunch of extra money because it's going to cost him $400,000 overall to refinance. Maybe he'll pay you $100, maybe he'll pay you $200 in order just to keep that loan. And now you've made a bunch of money by allowing him to use that credit of a loan that he can no longer get anywhere else. And there are instruments, at least in Texas, you can give a deed of trust to where if he doesn't pay that house payment, then you get to pay that house payment, and you can foreclose and kick him out, and then you get the benefit of the 3% loan. So now you've got the house back, and you're at a 3% loan. You could turn that house into a rental property or live in it with a renter and figure out how to pay for that, because that $170,000 house is probably not more than $2,000 in a mortgage, which is going to be similar to what she's going to be paying in an apartment anyway, especially because interest rates have skyrocketed apartment costs now too.
Yeah.
So this house that she had may cost her less than if she was even to move into an apartment at this point. Those are the type of things that the highest level type of divorce attorneys like we are will be able to put together a massively beneficial deal and help her benefit and get a major advantage as opposed to what used to be. I think this video may be a year old, so maybe Dave's advice may or may not change. Do you want to have a loan and sort of a business transaction with your ex? You don't really, but if it's that valuable, you're getting 6 figures out of it, I would do that. And we have a lot of clients that are in the process of doing that. Big deal.
And people often do that in a divorce.
Yes, but under normal circumstances, I would absolutely refuse that.
Well,
and you can force the house to be sold, but if you understand the advantage, then people make good deals with that.
Right, and that's why Dave Ramsey, I mean, he's great with financial advice, but he's not an attorney, so he doesn't know all these loopholes.
Exactly.
They often do that. But just, the negotiation is the car is in his name, he keeps his car. Your car's in your name, you keep your car. Your checking accounts are already separated. There's no other debt. You get your student loan debt. Does he have any big savings or investments, or do you?
There you go. Because that's what I wanted to know. That's where you got to get to.
For one case.
Not big, no.
How much?
I have $10,000 in the 401k, and I'm not sure what he has.
That's also another reason why it's critical for her to get an attorney.
She's not sure. She doesn't think it's big, but it could be, and she doesn't know because they've never had their checking accounts together.
And that also tells me they have never gone to Financial Peace University because
that's
why they're having marriage problems.
Well, they started their marriage off wrong. You don't separate your finances.
Yep.
They should have been together.
I agree.
That's why this is all their problems right now.
Yep.
But I'm thinking it's about 5,000 or 6,000.
Not much at all. Okay.
She's thinking and guessing. No, you need to find out for sure, and you need to see statements.
What is his income?
Here we go.
It's around 90,000.
Okay.
Oh, he has more in 401k than she thinks.
Yeah.
In most states, your attorney would have to advise you, but in most states, you would be due some alimony after 22 years.
It doesn't work exactly that way in Texas, but the fact that he earns that much more than her, she could get it potentially a disproportionate share of the assets.
Right.
And she definitely needs to get an attorney. No
Yeah.
question about this.
Yeah.
And that will going with your $50,000 is how you will reset your life and stay out of debt and start working your way through these student loans that are outrageous and are going to take you some time to work through.
That blows my mind on her student loans. Oh my goodness, she's got a house payment with no house.
I want to know what kind of degree she has and why is she only making $50,000?
Exactly.
Does she not work for a period of time? I mean,
know.
it sounds like maybe she
She needs
at
to
home.
hustle, and she needs to get her income up.
I don't know why Dave Ramsey didn't ask her how long she's been in the workforce.
Well, maybe he does in a second.
Yes.
But you're going to be working extra job. You're going to be doing everything else, taking any money you can squeeze out of your budget, and you are not going to Mexico. You got a mess on your hands. Okay?
No, I'm not. I do.
So unless it's to escape. No, just kidding.
I could get it. Well, she needs to be working 2 jobs, and she needs to go up and double her income and take that extra full-time job and pay off those student loans and within the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I think it's a 5-year plan of hustle, hustle, hustle. But she's basically signed up for indentured servitude. She's a slave for the next 5 years, and she has to be in order to get out of this. The good news is it's only going to take her 5 years, and you can get out of it. 5 years actually goes by pretty quickly. I've done 5 years 10 times now. So, but
It all
she's gotta
depends
do
on
it.
if she's got young children, too.
Yeah, well,
I mean, if she does, she'll get child support.
yeah, but still, I mean, the child support, it's going to cost her whatever the child support is to raise the child. She's better off if she doesn't have younger children because she can go out and actually hustle and work.
So you're going to be on beans and rice and beans. You're going to get the cheapest apartment you can get. You're going to stay debt-free and address these student loans as soon as you can get stabilized after the separation.
The other thing that she could do would be require him to pay her student loans in order to keep that house and her not have to refinance. Because if she's going to be living in the cheapest apartment, she doesn't need to buy a house anyway.
Right.
And it's cheaper for him to pay those student loans than it is to refinance that
Well,
house.
see, that's a big question that should have been asked. Like, are there children? Because that also says
I assume
how
that there's not,
big
since
of a house
she
or
hasn't
apartment
mentioned
she
it.
would have to get.
Oh, exactly.
You know.
And if there are children, she may need to actually keep that house.
Yeah.
And another advantage would be if she's keeping the house, him paying for that house as his child support and her not having to refinance is more valuable than the child support.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, because again, $400,000 there. And one of the deals that we would do is that says when the youngest is out, a year or two after that, the house has to be sold and then they split the money. And so it's an advantage to everybody.
Right.
Big time. Way better than, we're going to sell the house and I'm going to receive child support.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's going to cost you $2,000 a month more than what I just talked about. And we run those numbers for people to take a look at so that they can see. And we get better deals, especially now because of these interest rates. We get better deals than are even legally possible in court because a court won't order that. But by agreement, they can do that type of deal, and they should do that type of deal because it puts hundreds of thousands of dollars in their pockets instead of building a skyscraper in downtown that says Bank of America or Chase Bank on it.
Which will lead to a divorce unless it leads to you all getting back together. Okay? But you prepare for separation the same way financially you would prepare for a divorce, and that puts you in a position of strength.
Yeah, there's no difference.
Yeah.
To negotiate in the divorce financially, and that's something that you'll have to do.
So she's in a position of strength to negotiate in this particular divorce just because of her situation. The situation is what the situation is. But she's in a position of weakness if she cannot pay for her own attorney. She's in a position of strength if she pays and has a good attorney. That's the position of strength. That's where it is.
And your attorney, and you get representation, and you be ready to pay them, pile up money for deposits and for paying them. Don't pay extra on the student loans until you get the other side of this. And
I agree with that. You don't pay you defer everything possible because you're going to need as much money to pay that attorney as possible.
Oh,
you
yeah.
pay the attorney, you get you get through this thing, and then you start working all the baby steps and pay the loans off, and you go through that process.
I just put them on hardship deferral and pay nothing right now.
I agree with that.
But let's get the other side of this. But my hope is that you can see a counselor who can give you some words to say, some tools to get.
How has he not recommended Financial Peace University? Because all their problems are probably money related, and
Right.
he's got the solution
Yeah,
that
I know.
he created.
Bubba, a wake-up call. Maybe the two of you sit down with a coach, a counselor, and walk you through turning the corner on all of this before you get so far around the corner we can't get you back. And maybe you can save this thing. That would be best for everybody involved.
Yeah. I love saving marriages. I'm a big fan of saving marriages. I want to save all the ones that we can. That's why I recommend Financial Peace University for people that have problems like this.
Assuming the issues that you have that are causing you such concern are addressed. And I'm sure that sounds like it's a pretty long list, but
I wonder what all the list is.
Yeah, I know.
The interesting thing, the differences between his calls and our calls is that I get all of this information and more.
I know. I listen to him.
See a counselor for your sake. Call your pastor. Say, who can I sit down with that can walk?
Yeah, pastor, because they don't have the money to do paid counseling. Or if they have it covered in insurance,
they need to go do a re-engage program. It's everywhere, and it's offered in so many churches. And it's, like I said, 16-week program. The book costs $20. But lots of times, even if you can't afford that, the church waives that for you. And they need to learn to communicate. They need to learn to take. This
is probably a savable marriage, but they have a lot that they need to
forgive
learn
first. It sounds like
exactly.
Yeah,
and they need to communicate and work on this.
Walk me through the right questions to ask myself, the right questions to ask him, because he may think you're kidding, he may think you're bluffing. And when you actually move out, it may wake him up, and he may be willing to work on that list at that point. I don't know, but
does happen.
Yeah,
those kinds of things are best guided by a really good marriage counselor.
Exactly.
That's really experienced and wise and.
Exactly.
I hate to say this, but she's a person that needs to try to make it work because I don't see her being in a very good financial situation. I think she's going to be a person that struggles.
Although, if
I'm not saying you stay together for money, but I'm also saying
if they're going to stay together, they need to take the next 2 years and pay off her student loan.
She's not making comments like he's abusive. She's not making comments like he's,
all we've heard is financial.
It's just financial, so that can be fixed.
Exactly.
And she's saying that he won't, but like. I agree with Dave. Leave for a bit. Let him wake up. Like he might not think she would leave. Sometimes it's the separation alone will wake people up and be like, "Hey, you know what?
She still needs to prepare as if this is going to be a divorce and to have that line out. And she needs to make sure she's got those attorney's fees. If I were her, I would just I would see if I could take his name off of that Discover card and her keep it because that's access to money to pay an attorney.
Yeah.
Because if this goes bad, he hires an attorney. He's got $90,000. She's trying to live on $50,000. She is way outgunned and way out a disadvantage as far as paying and hiring her attorney because you have to pay and hire and get the attorney done in order to be able to do these things.
I mean, between the two of them, they make $140,000 a year.
Yeah.
Of course, with after taxes, but they're still bringing in over $100,000. So,
yeah, and for that reason, so they need to be on a 3-year plan to pay off her student loan.
I want to know how long they've owned that house too.
And then
why have they only
what they should do
made that much of a dent?
Exactly. Well, and they should also then take the next 3 years, 4 years, and pay off the house.
Yeah.
And in 7 years, they're completely debt free. But they're going to have to get together on this. They're going to have to combine their finances, realize that they're in this together. And
quit trying to do it individually.
But here's the deal: he may think, "Oh no, I don't want to pay her student loan. I don't want to pay that debt," and he may be in a selfish place, and this may not be salvageable.
Right?
He may think, "No, I don't love her that much, and I'm not paying that money." He just may be done.
Maybe he didn't agree with her taking out that much debt.
Don't know, but I would.
Maybe
ask.
they had issues with that. Maybe she was like, no, she was determined, and she wouldn't listen to him, and maybe that's why he's kept the financial separated.
Could be.
There's always two sides to every story.
Right.
So
godly counsel will help you in that situation.
But again, just like he's saying, counseling.
I sure hope you guys can turn that around. That would be my hope for you.
I hope they can turn it around too.
It'd be better for all of you, financially as well as everything else. So, good question. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, guys.
Yeah. So they can save that marriage, but they got to do the right things. And most important, she needs to get the right attorney. Mm-hmm. This is the Lawyer Dana Show.
Bye.